Chapter 8. Matters which are prohibited from daybreak until one has recited one's prayers. 1. At dawn, the first glimmerings of the sun on the eastern horizon, the time designated for prayer begins. Though it is not desirable to pray at this time, after the fact, a person who prays is considered to have fulfilled his obligation, as explained in Chapter 18, Law 1. Therefore, a person is forbidden to begin his work, take care of business, or depart on a journey before he prays. As Tehillim states, righteous shall precede him as he sets off in the way of his steps. Righteousness can be interpreted as reference to prayer, for in prayer one proclaims the righteousness of his Creator, and this should precede setting off in the way of his steps, i.e. tending to one's desires. A few footnotes on this. Work is forbidden even if begun a half hour before dawn. However, some authorities allow leniency if one has already recited some blessings and has not begun Baruch Shama. Nevertheless, it is proper to accept the more stringent view of Shulchan Aruch. Next note, this applies even if he will be able to pray with a minyan after reaching his destination. However, if he is traveling with a caravan and they will not wait for him, he may leave together with them. Mizgeres HaShulchan. A final footnote. In contrast, a person involved in the desires of heaven, for example, activities associated with a mitzvah, may begin his activity even before he recites his morning prayers. 3. 2. It is forbidden to eat or drink before prayer. As it says in Vayikra, do not eat over blood. Barachos Atembi interprets this verse to mean, do not eat until you have prayed for your blood. Regarding anyone who eats or drinks and prays afterwards, it says in Malachim, you have cast me behind your back. And the Brachos comments do not read Gavecha, your back, but rather Ga'echa, your pride. God questions after he's expressed his pride, shall he accept the yoke of heaven? It is even forbidden to drink coffee or tea with sugar or milk. It is preferable for a weak and elderly man who cannot hold himself back until after the conclusion of the communal prayers to recite his prayers at home. This advice is particularly relevant on the Shabbos and Yom Tovim when the services are extended. Such a person should recite his prayers at home without being hurried, recite Kiddush, eat something, and then go to shul. There he should pay attention to the congregation's morning prayers and recite the Musaf prayers together with them. This is preferable to drinking coffee with sugar and the like without accepting the yoke of heaven first. Nevertheless, for medical reasons, one may eat and drink before prayer because this is not considered as an expression of pride. Similarly, if a person cannot concentrate his attention in prayer without eating or drinking beforehand, he may eat or drink before prayer if he desires. 3. There are those who maintain that even a person who gets up at midnight may not taste food before he prays. It is proper to accept this stringency. However, if one feels weak, one is permitted to eat or drink in order to strengthen one's body for Torah study. The Mishnah Berurah accepts this decision and quotes an incident concerning Rav Chaim Vital. Once Rav Chaim felt very weak and ate before prayer. He explained that this was permitted because the prohibition involves only eating intended to fulfill one's desires. 4. Water and similarly tea or coffee without sugar are permitted before prayer even if one got up after dawn, for drinking them is not considered an expression of pride. Footnote, today leniency is granted in most communities to add sugar and milk to tea or coffee. In many communities even further leniency is granted and eating is permitted, provided one's intention is to eat. In order to be able to pray with greater feeling, before eating or drinking, one should recite the Shema. One may even drink these beverages before prayer on Shabbos and Yom Tovim, despite the obligation to recite Kiddush. The time for Kiddush does not begin until after prayer, because Kiddush is recited only in the place of a meal, i.e. close to one's meal. Thus, in this instance, the obligation is not yet incumbent upon him, because one may not eat a meal before prayer. 5. A person may not approach his colleague's door in order to greet him before prayer. This applies even when one says only good morning. As Isaiah states, separate yourselves from a man whose breath is in his nostrils, for what can he be accounted? I.e., what is his importance which causes you to give him honor before me? Talking about Hashem. This is found in Brachos 14a. If by chance one were to meet someone, the law allows one to greet him using the word shalom. However, it is proper to use a different expression which will cause one to pay attention to the fact that he cannot occupy himself with other things until he prays. Footnote, shalom is significant because it is explained in chapter 5. Shalom is considered one of the names of Hashem. Another note, if the meeting comes about by chance, even the more stringent opinions allow one to respond to a colleague with greeting shalom, or to greet a colleague with expressions such as good morning. Mishnah Berurah. 6. It is forbidden even to begin studying Torah from daybreak onward. However, if a person is accustomed to going to shul, and there is no reason to fear that he will delay his prayers to the extent that the time for prayer passes, he is permitted to study. Similarly, permission is granted to a person who studies together with others. If were they not to study at this time, their study session would be nullified. This leniency is granted because the merit of the many is of great importance. Nevertheless, they must take care not to delay their prayers until after the time for prayer passes.